Welcome to the Human Experience Podcast, the only podcast designed to fuse your left and right brain hemispheres and feed it the most entertaining and mentally engaging topics on the planet. As we approach our ascent, please make sure your frontal, temporal, and occipital lobes are in their full upright position. As you take your seat of consciousness, relax your senses and allow us to take you on a journey. We are the Intimate Strangers. Thank you for listening.
Hey guys, we are here with another episode. This is Dr. G and I just kind of talking. We go into some Jungian dream analysis, archetype stuff, and then we spend most of the conversation talking about Ayahuasca. But it was a pretty low-key episode, and you have to forgive both of us. We were really tired. It was 4 a.m, and we decided to record so that we had an episode for you guys this week. We will be having a guest on, and I'm working on a couple episodes that I just have to finish mastering, and then we'll post. So thank you so much for listening, and there is a new intro, so hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Thanks, guys. What's up, Dr. G? So I really want to talk about dreams, man, because I've been having these really intense kind of experiences in my dream state. Do you usually remember your dreams?
I've been having a hard time recently with dreams, but what's been happening is I'll go in with the intention of saying, hey, I'm gonna have a dream tonight, or try to to trigger that, trigger the fact that to almost hit the record button in my sleep, and I'm getting better at remembering dreams.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like Jung had some really, really interesting material on dream analysis and dream interpretation. Like he had these archetypes. There's 7 archetypes, and I guess you can link the 7 archetypes with the 7 main chakra centers in your body, but that's a different kind of drift that I'm going to. But so Jung talked about these different archetypes that exist for all of us, and there's 7 of them. The first one is the persona, which is the image that you present to the world in your waking life, like your mask. The second one is the shadow, which is the rejected and the repressed aspects of yourself. Then there's the animus, which is the male female. The divine child, the wise man, old woman, the great mother, and the trickster. So there's all of this kind of understand. I mean, don't you think it's weird that everything on the planet goes to sleep for an indeterminate amount of time every night? Isn't that strange?
Who was saying? I forgot who it was that said that. I think it might have been Jung, where he said that the reason artists and I think it was Stanley. I think it was one of Groff's theory was why artists and people that have a creative aspect to themselves stay up late at night. And they've done studies consistently that show that the smarter you are, you're gonna stay up later, and you're gonna sleep in later. There's dozens of articles that showcase that. And my take on it is with the morphic resonance theory, that I believe it was Groff, or it might have been Stanislav Grof, who said that there's there's the one mind that we're all sharing, and when everyone's awake, they're kind of taking in that space of the logos. So I think when everyone's asleep, you get more of that space to yourself to explore, and there's not as much chatter there.
Yeah, Jung actually brings this up as well. He visited this tribe in Africa or something. I don't remember the name offhand of the tribe, but when he visited them, he noted that they would have collective dreams. Like the tribe was having these dreams that they would have together, and they would differentiate the personal individual dreams as little dreams and the collective ones as big dreams.
You know what's funny about that story is, I think it was Peter Gabriel has a song called "Rhythm of the Heat" or "Rhythm of the Night." I forgot which one it is, and the whole story is about the memoirs of Carl Jung with that tribe, where they thought they were going to kill him or something because of this tribal pattern beat, because he just came to this tribe to check them out, and this drumbeat just kept swelling and swelling, and I'm not sure if he took like an intoxicant or not, but I think he became so subdued from the rhythmic patterning of the beat from this tribe that he started like, you know, getting into that field that you were just talking about.
Well, what I've noticed for myself is that there's this sort of moment, like right between when you are back in your body and you're about to wake up, and that moment where you're fully awake, and it's like this transfer. And I'm not sure who talked about this, but there's like this window where you'll actively transmit the dreams that you've had into your conscious mind. And Jung talks about the interpretation or the analysis, or how you figure out what these dream images mean. He referred to it as amplification.
Is this the red book you're talking about? I know he wrote a huge series of books, but there's one that has, is it Man and His Symbols that you're talking about?
I'm not sure where I'm getting this from. I've just been having these really intense, more sexually charged than usual dreams, and I'm trying to figure out, where. And I've started like kind of collecting them into a journal, and I'm actively writing my dreams down, and I'll do what you said. I'll start, before I go to sleep, I'll put, into my mind that I'm going to remember my dreams.
I think the sexual charged themes that come up in the subconscious are all about, I think that's the same correlation that everyone talks about with Satan and the devil and the flesh, and how there's like the worldlier aspects of life. And as you like try to shed those away to focus on whatever your mission or your great work or, life path is going to be, you like come in contact more, like that part is fighting to survive, and it probably is coming up to the surface more.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's interesting. Just that it relates down, into the pineal gland and DMT and rapid eye movement, and you're kind of releasing this neurotransmitter in your brain, and that animals and humans all do it. I mean, my cat has an active dream life, so it's just intriguing, man. But
you ever have moments with animals where you're just like, there's definitely a consciousness there. There's definitely some being that's behind there that senses you much more than most of the people, and at least this civilization right now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. My cat has more cognitive ability than most of the people that I encounter, actually. But yeah, man. I mean, how do you feel about where the podcast is and what we're doing here?
I'm having a blast. I'm kind of shocked, like how many people are listening. To be honest with you,
me too, man. I'm not really
kind of shocked.
I'm not really sure how we're managing to attract these people.
We should just come out with it. Like, let's just talk. Like the
podcast. I don't want to drop any numbers specific, but I did finally get myself to check stats, and it's pretty mind blowing how many people are clicking our website and listening to our voices talk. It's really, really amazing, and I mean, I'm pretty stunned by the whole process. Like I'm really passionate about bringing these people on and having them talk about their life's work. And I mean, I think it's the most fun job ever. I mean, it does take a lot of energy and there's a lot of work behind the scenes, but it's worth every moment.
It's been a really interesting I tell you what, I've learned more about business and other aspects of my life than when it was like from putting this together with you.
Yeah, man. I mean, I've been involved. I know I've been involved in startup. I know that you've dabbled with that a bit, and this feels like a startup company. Like I feel like I'm launching a startup company, and that's the way that I'm kind of perceiving it. So,
well, if you really look at it, there was a recent book by the name of the lady's name is, I think it's Deborah Meadows, and this book just kept popping up place after place. I was like, I'm gonna just download this book because it seems relevant. and it's called Systems: A Primer, and it talks about how you can really break down anything into a system, and there's no reason why the system of a startup shouldn't apply to something like a podcast. I mean, it's technically a startup, and you can start applying these other systems as far as inflow, outflow, having a stock, and apply that to pretty much any model.
Yeah, I mean, there's all of these articles that I've been reading recently about how the ear share, they're calling it ear share for podcasts, is increasing astronomically. More and more people are tuning into this free kind of podcast movement. I mean, whatever that
But
is.
you know what? Let's straight up break the fourth wall right now. You guys tell your friends if you like the podcast. Tell your friends. Like, let's blow this the fuck up. Like, straight up. Like, tell people, like, this is how the Rogan blew up. This is how all those other podcasts, like, blew up. Tell other people that are into this kind of stuff, and you know who they are. Just let them know.
Yeah, I think it's growing pretty naturally. And I think if people really like it, I mean, you share the things that you're into. So I think if people really like what we're doing, then they'll naturally kind of just want to share it, which is cool with me. And yeah, I mean, what Rogan is doing and Duncan Trussell and some of the heavier hitters in the podcast sphere, I mean, it's pretty respectable, man. Like, they're drawing a pretty huge audience, and somehow I feel like we are the next generation of that type of person.
Yeah, so, not to blow ourselves over here, but
well, yeah, man. I mean, what's been going on in your life? Like, how are things going on your end?
Things are really starting to pick up a pace that I haven't been accustomed to since, like, I guess first starting med school. As far as like just jumping into the boot camp environment, things are starting to. That system book really helped me as far as like putting things together, seeing things in a certain kind of model, and things are firing on cylinders. I kind of want to just keep momentum going. There's a recent I forgot the name of it. There's a guy who was on another podcast talking about the flow state. I want to start reading up on the people that are killing it, like how they stay in that. This positive momentum there's something to it. It makes sense.
I mean, I don't know if you're like this. I am like, I will ride that momentum as much as I possibly can, and I get to a point where I just burn out. Like, I'm firing on all of my cylinders, as you just said, and I get so involved, and I'm like a complete workahol, and I put so much of my energy into it. So I'm learning how to kind of balance. And one of the big messages that I've been kind of getting is really just understanding and appreciating the journey aspect. Like, not so much the end result, and not so much okay, here's my destination, but more of how am I getting there, and the process of everything.
I 100% agree. I didn't believe that till this last few months, as far as kind of like jumping into this abyss. And they're right. Like, the journey is the process. That sounds so hokey and bullshitty, but I'm convinced that no matter where you are, no matter what your environment is, you're gonna do what you're gonna do. I think it was Osho, I think it was Taoist, and basically he describes how your life is this river. You're going down this river course, and you can put all the rocks you want on the river. You can make these little tributaries to the side, but you're going to empty out into the ocean at some point. Like, this vessel, this story of yours has happened before. This is going to happen to you no matter what. The experiences are going to happen to you. You're going to make these certain patterns of behavior because you're attracting certain type of people in your life, and these people are going to have some influence, and based on your decisions and choices you make, this is the story that unfolds. So watch it unfold and play with it.
Yeah, man, it's easy to become absent-minded and kind of go into robot mode and really just kind of lose yourself and get lost in all of the shit, the Super Bowl or something. And
There's so much shit, though.
I mean, none of that stuff really matters. None of it really affects your life. And I mean, not to, kind of denigrate these people who obsess over conspiracy theories or whatever. But it doesn't affect me. The Illuminati don't affect me. I mean, not in the direct sense. Like, yeah, global policy affects my life, but I mean, I don't know any Illuminati members, and I mean, like, it's interesting. I mean, it's entertainment for me.
Well, it
but
is affecting people because here's what I'm thinking now. If there is an Illuminati, right, it's almost mainstream now to the point where people are giving that thought form energy, right? So they're giving away their own life's energy, obsessing about whether there's an Illuminati or not. And that, like, they're winning. If that is the case, that's genius.
Yeah, I mean, before, like 10 years ago, before 9/11, I guess it would be more like 14 years ago, but before then, no one really talked about the Illuminati. Like, I remember I had a conspiracy phase, and I really was obsessed with Bohemian Grove and
But it's
what they
fascinating
were.
stuff.
It is incredibly fascinating, like the Rothschilds and these people, these blood human effigy rituals that they're conducting. I mean, it's really truly interesting. But I mean, I think at the end, and like when I kind of climbed back out of the rabbit hole, I just realized that it was another form of misdirection, kind of like the energy that you just said that we're putting into it. And I mean, there does seem to be these occult orders which are very interesting, and their rituals are interesting. And
You know what I think that is? I think that's no matter what and no matter where you end up, and those occult, there's always an esoteric side of every religion. There's always like the mystics of even Buddhism. The Jews have the Kabbalists. There's esoteric, mystical. Even Christianity is basically founded on Jesus as this mystic performing miracles. And no matter what kind of no matter where you are, you're going to have people that gravitate towards that occult mindset. And you're going to have people that will form these factions and groups. And I guess just like any group, they're going to say they're the best group.
yeah. I mean, if you have knowledge kind of like in a pyramid, and there are a 1% of people who are kind of holding this information, I mean, wouldn't you do the same thing? I mean, wouldn't you create like a secret society and
I
kind
think
of
that's
run
how it
the
started,
world?
though. Like, isn't that how it started? You would like think about it, if we were monkeys, right? And someone figured out we're monkeys. We get to this point where we have intelligent brains. We can figure out and map the coordinates of the moon or the sun, and we know that when there's an eclipse. You're telling me that the guy that can predict, hey, the sun's going to go black today, they're not going to worship and venerate that person and take the power of those other tribe members? That's probably how this all started.
I don't know if you've gotten into like Robert Monroe's work. He's kind of a personal hero of mine, but he got into some really interesting stuff, man. He basically started having these spontaneous out of body experiences, and he started journaling them. And we actually have a guest that was featured in his book, which I'll leave as a surprise. But so Monroe got to this point, and you can find this in his books, where he saw this sort of matrix control system, and he basically his point was that we are all being used as batteries. Like our emotions, like anger, fear, love, hope, all these things we're being used as this sort of battery system. And he went into this deep sort of depression after that. It's a really interesting story. You should read that if you haven't.
I mean, I was just out. A friend of mine came in town, and I don't really like to go out. I had to meet her at one of those piano bars, and just looking at everyone on their smartphone. Everyone's like devoid of life. Like this younger generation is so far gone. It looked like a scene out of Idiocracy. Like some girl was like taking a selfie of herself, like taking a drink out of a plastic cup by the bar. Like, you got to be kidding me? Like she's like angling her face, and like she retook the picture. Like the first one wasn't good enough. She retook the selfie of her taking a picture, and I was like,
man.
it's over. It's over.
I do that now as like a coping mechanism. Like whenever I feel like anxious in a social situation, I'll just pull out my phone and I'll pretend to look at it. So yeah, I definitely understand what you're saying about how this generation, this next generation is sort of, I don't know, man. We're in trouble, man. The human race is, I don't know where we're going, but I guess we're gonna find out.
I'm really starting to be convinced that the whole concept of the Antichrist, that this whole old world theory, Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson, where they say that the whole modern archaeology is bullshit. Basically, where this pattern repeats, where there's like a ice age, then there's like a window of opportunity where life begins again, and we emerge, and intelligent life emerges, or some of us still survive, and then there's like a comet impact, and there's always this like back and forth pattern of fire and ice, right? It almost makes sense that we would get to a point where technology exists. Like we are here to extrude technology. Like that's the being that we are as humans, is we are the bacteria on the earth that forms like plastics and spaceships out of living material. So like we've done this before. This is our pattern, and the Antichrist, and that concept of like the end of times is, hey, like here's what's coming. We're going to develop to this point where we're like extruding and shitting out technology to the point where it's like detrimental to everything. That's the Antichrist.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of major religions that kind of move around this subject, like the Hindus and like the Krishnas talk about the Kali Yugas, and I've been kind of hanging out with these crazy Krishna people, which they're really cool actually, and they talk about how we're in this end phase of this like major Kali Yuga. They call it a Kali Yuga, and they keep talking about how these awakening type movements are happening. Why do you think that Western culture is kind of being like immersed and flooded by all these Eastern philosophies and ways of thought?
It is interesting. This has been a pattern also, that where every generation's like, this is the last one, this is the last round. Like I remember growing up, like my parents were pretty religious, and they were basically telling me, like this is, there's going to be like, you're going to be the generation that sees like the end of times or something, and that's pretty fucked up to tell a little kid, first of all. Like, but how do we know that's not being infused in people's brains? If people are being told that, hey, there is an end of times, right? There is an end to things. Maybe they're going to try to manifest that in their reality by, they assume, oh, well, I'm the last generation, I might as well go out with a bang and just like shit this place up.
Yeah, that sounds like a psychological operation. I mean, nothing that I know of happened in 2012, and we're still here. So the Mayans, I don't know, maybe there's a misinterpretation of something, or it was just a really big way to see how we would react to a situation like that. I mean, if you look at media and movies, why do you think around that same period that we're seeing all of these crazy fucking movies about the end of the world? And oh my god,
I mean, I think it's almost obvious now that we're, if 99% of species are toast on this planet that ever existed, that's clearly going to happen to us, and we've just been lucky enough to survive these cycles, of some kind of like asteroid event and then an ice age, and we're just going to keep doing this back and forth. I think that's why we try to get off the planet.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
I think it's like in our system. Like we know something's coming. We got to get the fuck out of here.
I would be the first one to take that fucking step. Like I'm down to get off the planet. But yeah, man, it definitely is interesting how we've been kind of moving through these different paradigms, and how each generation is given this sort of idea that it's the last generation and something major is going to happen with the planet, when nothing really does, and everything kind of continues on as it was. So I guess we'll see.
It's funny, when you talked about getting onto Mars, I'll remember there was like a really low point I had like about a year and a half ago, and I was on some website and they were doing the Mars one applicants, and I didn't like hesitate. Like it was like this is for a one-way mission to Mars. We're gonna like I was like, oh well, I might as well like try this out. Like, that's where I was at that time.
Holy shit! Yeah, I don't think I've ever gone that far, not yet. I mean, but I'd be down. I mean, what company was feeling? This is the American government that you're like.
It's just like I think the Elon Musk like not Mars, Elon Musk. There's like that. Aren't they filming like a reality series supposedly where they're gonna ship like 12 people to Mars and then they're gonna
What?
like someone's just gonna kill everyone. Like,
oh my god,
like,
dude!
There's no way that works out.
I mean, imagine the psychological testing that you would have to incur, like how rigorous the training would be just to survive. Like, I mean, I've been reading, there's some articles out there about how deadly isolation can be and how when you close yourself off to society and other people, we're social creatures by nature. Humans are social by nature. So when you close yourself off to those channels, you pretty much go insane. So being in space, which is this major vacuum, like, I mean, you're going to lose your shit.
How proud do you think the first season of the Survivor cast is, knowing that what they did for reality TV ended up putting a man on Mars?
Yeah, what an interesting. I love that though. I love those. I always wanted to be like kind of an anthropologist and kind of study just to study people is fascinating to me. Like watching what people are doing is
That's
really
nice.
interesting. And so, I mean, I don't know if you could call like the real world anthropology, but it's definitely a social experiment, like, but yeah, man, I mean, all of this is really interesting, and there are some really interesting kind of guests that are in the line of this thought, and like Tom Campbell is coming up, and we've got this guy who practices shamanic Judaism coming up next week. And yeah, man, there's a lot of like the podcast is making a lot of momentum, and I really see myself doing this for a long time, and hopefully people enjoy what we're doing and talking about, even though it seems like we're circle jerking sometimes.
Yeah, guys, shoot us emails like anytime.
Dr. G really wants to hear from you guys.
I want one email.
I've gotten a couple really heartfelt emails that really kind of made me stop, and like I was really affected. And yeah, I mean, these people who you don't know at all, they're complete strangers who are listening to you talk, your voice. And
this isn't counting groupies or anything like that.
And these people are telling you how much something that you're doing means to them. I mean, it's really powerful, the feeling that you get from that. So yeah, man, definitely we have your email up on the website, and so people can definitely contact you. Maybe they can contact you for medical advice.
Yeah, don't do that. Probably the worst decision you can make.
But yeah, man, I'm going to be traveling a little bit this weekend, and going to be doing.
Where you heading?
I would rather not say the location of where I'm heading.
Hey, where are you at right? What's your address and phone number?
But I'm going to be meeting up with this group that I will also leave unnamed, and they practice. I mean, for them, it's a religion, and they basically conduct these ayahuasca ceremonies, and probably the most transformative, most profound thing I've ever experienced in my life. And I've so quickly become so attached, and like these people to me mean so much. It's like my soul family that I'm encountering, and like these old traits, these old personality traits, negative personality traits that I used to have are no longer there. Like I mean,
There's a marked difference in you. Like it's palpable.
yeah, man, I feel more positive. I'm less angry. I don't drink anymore. I don't even have a desire to put that shit in my body. I mean, everything, like from my diet to my personality, and I'm so fucking thankful that like I found this, just because I was pretty much teetering, and I mean, you know this, like I was pretty much teetering on offing myself, and I mean, this saved my life. And so yeah, man, I mean, I just really excited for this weekend, and everything has been moving so fast, and I've just been working so hard on the podcast. And
I will say, I mean, you can edit this out if you want, but the most marked difference I've noticed is I think you were honestly bordering on an addiction issue. Like I think you were drinking a lot.
yeah, man, I
And
was
I
a
haven't seen
heathen,
you.
dude.
Yeah, you were definitely doing some bacchanalian, debauchery. Like you were.
I mean, well, the way it was for me, and I'll explain this, is that I would get into an uncomfortable type state. I would start to feel bad, like whether it was anxiety or whether it was a long day at work or whatever the fuck it was. And I would use drinking as a coping mechanism. And it wasn't even like a second thought. I would even plan out my day. I would plan out my entire day around drinking, and like to the moment where I would be going to the store and purchasing the alcohol, and it was bad, man. I was and yeah, and I mean, you're a doctor, so I mean, I think you're trained to recognize addiction, and I'll admit it. There was a very addictive, I mean, I think, and this is just my crazy mind wandering, but I think that there was a fucking alcohol demon attached to me, and through the ayahuasca, like, I detached it. I got it off me, and now that it's gone, it's not hooked into me and sucking the life out of me anymore. So I'm actually putting my energy into things that mean something.
I mean, if whether you want to call it a demon or some kind of thought construct, whatever the pattern is, it's more than just biochemical. Because we know for a fact that the studies are coming out from NYU, from Johns Hopkins, from some physicians that I was gonna, that I know of, and they are proving that this is a lot more effective than just AA or just therapy or taking, medication. There's the block, and that memory is being the neuronal pathway is being reformed where there is like this issue. There's some kind of, even and biochemically there is work being done by the psychedelics.
Yeah, man. I mean, I've noticed such a profound change in my own energy that people treat me differently. Like, people are kind, and I mean, I'm not really used to that. It kind of like worried me, like when it started happening, just because I mean, people aren't, noticeably overly like kind or generous, and I started noticing that people would kind of go out of their way to help me, which is fucking mind blowing, man. And I don't know, just really powerful, and just and I really really think that through the ayahuasca sessions that I don't know, man. I've only had like 3 sessions right now so far, but yeah, it's like night and day for me, and just a complete change.
It's incredible. Yeah, I mean it's a marked difference, and it works. I went down to Peru. I've done it. It saved my life. I was at a point right now. I was at a point in my life where I lost everything I had. I was destroyed, and I needed to, I had to set the intention of what is my path? Like, where do I go from here? And the points that were outlined almost have kind of come to fruition.
Yeah, that's really amazing, man. I believe it. And it's really interesting.
It's medicine. They call it medicine. It's not fun.
No, there's nothing pleasant about an ayahuasca experience. I'll just say that. Like, I mean, you're nauseous, you're puking, purging, you're shitting your, like, it's not a fun thing. You're not saying to your friends, hey, let's go hang out, let's drop some ayahuasca and get wasted. No, that's not how it works at all.
But I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, the good news is, Roche Pharmaceutical within probably 10 years will figure out a way to like chemically synthesize it and make a shit ton of money off whatever it is. So.
I mean, I don't really see that happening, man, just because there's an actual cure happening. Like it's actually treating, my depression and anxiety and my addiction. So there's no reason for me to go back and see a doctor and to fill a prescription. So the MAPS Institute is trying to like pharmaceuticalize MDMA. They're trying to do that for 2021, I think, and they want it to be a prescription drug by, within the next 7-8 years. That's
going to happen for sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Even LSD now in Europe is being used in a bunch of trials. I think they just started one here, and I don't know how they could possibly make I guess in a therapeutic session that would be good to use if it was like the pure Sandoz they were using back in the day. But psilocybin they can extract chemically. There's I forgot the chemical formulation, but it'll acetylate in your liver and just becomes like the active psilocin. I think it's 4-ACO-DMT or something like that, where you can get the chemical version of it, and then it becomes psilocin in your system, and you can. I think Johns Hopkins was using that, or one of the other studies was using that, because it's very hard to kind of titrate, I guess, the psilocybin dosage in mushrooms. So they synthesized it, and I think it was like 2.8 grams was super effective in relieving anxiety and like terminal people that were dying of cancer. They were giving them, and they went off in not much psychological pain.
Yeah, I think it was either McKenna. I think it was McKenna who had this sort of trip where he met this entity of the mushroom, and it told him that it was from outer space, and it had been around for thousands of years before human civilization. And I just find it interesting, like Food of the Gods. That book was really interesting, and
that's a great book, man. That is a fucking great book.
But yeah, man, ayahuasca has completely occupied my being, my consciousness. I'm more positive. I feel happy. I mean, not to say I don't have ups and downs, but I'm more stable than I was before I did it.
I tried to ask you this after you did it, and I hate to like keep pestering you about it, but this is the thing that fascinates me the most about that space is you mentioned that it clicked for you. Like you got past this wall. What was the message, or what was in that space that it was fine? Was it the purge itself, or was there some kind of...
You really want to know this? Like, you want to know the answer to this? It's so simple. It was just surrender. Like, it's that. I mean, I guess maybe it's simple, but just surrendering to, call it the universe or God. I mean, if you're an atheist, I don't know, but
wow.
yeah, man, just letting go of your fear, your misconceptions, your preconceived notions about what you think is real and true, and all of the shit that you hold in your body, all of the negativity that you pick up like every day, just letting that go. And ayahuasca is not this be all end all, and I don't recommend anyone do it outside of a clinical controlled setting, but
This is all allegedly, of course.
I mean, no, I mean
No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
the group that I'm doing with that has a DEA license, and they're regulated to distribute this as a medicine. So I'm not breaking any laws by doing ayahuasca within this group. But yeah, man, just the idea of really letting go of what you're afraid of these ideas and these things that hinder you. If you can learn to do that actively, I mean, ayahuasca just is a tool that shows you how to do that. And yeah, man,
That is crazy stuff, man. I mean, how often would you recommend doing it?
to me, it's become like maintenance, and I plan on pursuing my relationship with this group as much as possible. And they train sort of shamans, their version of shamans, and so I plan on going down that road. And I would say to do it once a month is about where I'm at right now.
I mean, it gets better with each ensuing time, or is there more?
No, I don't. I wouldn't. I mean, I guess yeah. I guess like an onion, peeling an onion, like you're the first thing, and like all of your physical, like your addictions and your anxieties and your fears. But each experience that I've had has been so radically different than the last, and from the people that I've met that are there and have been doing it for like 30 years in the jungle in the Amazon, and they've kind of echoed that same opinion, just that it changes every time that you do it.
Even in the Amazon, they were saying that the shaman was day to day. He would sometimes take a little bit and have a crazy, have a wild experience, and then the largest dose wouldn't even affect them. So I guess it all depends.
I mean, how did you end up like in the Amazon? Like, can you share that story?
I don't want to go into too much specifics on it, but something super catastrophic happened to me in the middle of a very tumultuous time, where to the point where I lost everything that I had, everything that I owned in a horrible catastrophe, and the plant kept coming up almost in a synchronistic way. Just certain contacts that came up. I was interested in a certain field. Certain people like emailed me, and I got contacts ran to certain people. They kept recommending that I do a rotation with this person who's studying this plant medicine. It just kept coming up, documentaries for things in the news. And as this catastrophic event happened, the first thing I had was relief. I felt this feeling of, oh, it's gone. Like everything's done and lost in this event, and I felt really free. And then the next thing I felt was, oh, I'm going to end up in Peru and I'm going to go do ayahuasca. And that was through some series of wild events. I ended up getting this. I ended up going down there as a rotation for credit to actually to work with a physician down there, and it's actually it's Naihu Ro down in Iquito. Dr. Joe Tafur, he's the best. I mean, he's amazing. If anyone's interested in going, I can't it's the Centre de Spiritual, I believe it is, and Ricardo, I believe, is the shaman there. And
Sorry, go ahead.
No.
Why do you think that there seems to be this movement of people who are being drawn towards going to the jungle and taking ayahuasca? Why do you think that is?
I mean, what he told me, and I don't want to speak, on his behalf, but he shared with me that the other physicians that have had those kind of mystical experiences, whether it was in med school or wherever in their lives, and they realized that there was a lot more to this, and they ended up exploring that path. I know there's a lot of, I'm assuming they've had those experiences in order to kind of go down that path, and I think that's why so many psychiatrists and doctors are kind of exploring that space, or even researchers are exploring that space because of people that are in academia, or intelligent people that are professionals that are dabbling, so to speak, or having these experiences and realizing that there's so much more to the toxic shit that's being spewed out of just literature. Even I mean, look at what's happening if what's going on with, say, like Randall Carlson or Graham Hancock, or they do find out that there is this, Göbekli Tepe and all these other different archaeological sites, that we're completely wrong about archaeology. I mean, we're completely wrong every 10 years about physics. It's only fair that we're going to be wrong about psychiatry, psychology, medicine, every other aspect.
Wow. Yeah, that's so powerful, man. Just learning, and like people like Graham Hancock who are just spreading the awareness, and I actually have a guest that is going to talk about ayahuasca next week, and I mean, it's such a powerful, amazing, like ritualistic thing, and I mean, yeah, and I think spreading awareness. It was Brad Burge of the MAPS Institute. I think what my takeaway from what that interview was, just when you have psychedelic experiences that change your life, talk about them, because I think so many people are afraid to kind of come out and talk about this stuff, and our society is so fucked up that we criminalize these activities, and we regulate this idea of the government being able to tell me like what I can or can't put into my body. And I mean, it really is a big scam. And so I mean, yeah, I would encourage people to, if you're struggling with PTSD, and if you have addiction disorders, and I mean, really look into going to the Amazon. I mean that does seem like a luxury, and it is.
Or if it's helped you, come out of the closet, so to speak, about it and tell people, because that's the only way they're going to know. It was probably the most important experience of my entire life, I would say. That was the most healing thing that's ever happened to me. And I know exactly how you're feeling. I was going down a bad path. Like it saved me.
Yeah, easily, hands down. Just I'm sure, and my closest friends and my family, they will attest to this. And I just I'm just very, very grateful for that ability, and to locate this very secretive group that, I mean, if you know who I'm talking about, you either do or you don't, but they do exist. And yeah, I just feel really lucky, man.
There was one, I mean, there's so many different aspects, because one session is different than the next, but there's one thing that's been, the last few months, there was something that appeared in one of the ceremonies to me that's been a struggle of mine. And it was, I was in this like carnival, and these, it was like a shooting gallery, and these like things were just throwing coins and like a lot of sexual imagery at me. And I realized, like, they were showcasing like, this is the path you're going on. And I would see this giant tomb, and I would see this body like dropping into this tomb over and over and over again. And I was like coming to take a look at it, and it was me. I was rotting in this tomb, and I kept going down this hole and just over and over and over again. And it was so clear what the message.
Well, the interesting thing about ayahuasca is, since we're kind of writing this topic, is that it's completely organic, meaning everything that like all the compounds that make up ayahuasca exist in your body already. So you're not putting this like sort of foreign element, like DMT exists in your brain, and your stomach produces MAOIs. Is that correct, Dr. G?
As far as the ayahuasca working in the oral form?
No. I mean, your stomach does produce MAOIs, right?
Yeah. There's linings of MAOI all over your intestinal system.
Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of this natural thing, and I'm even moving towards I'm less drawn towards eating meat, and I don't know, man. It's really really powerful, and I mean I hate to harp on it so much, but yeah.
Well, MAOs, I'm sorry. I mean, if it was an MAOI, it would be inhibiting it and causing it to probably trip harder.
Yeah, so I mean, isn't the MAOI what allows it to cross DMT to cross the blood-brain barrier, the BBB?
What's if you take an MAOI inhibitor to block the MAO, then it will induce the longer form of it, whereas your lining of your lungs doesn't have the MAO, which is why it rapidly, your blood-brain barrier doesn't have it, so it just rapidly degrades when people take dimethyltryptamine.
Interesting. So yeah, man. Just to wrap this up, is there anything that you wanted to bring up or anything before we close this episode out?
Guys, blow us up.
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone that has been listening to our show and coming back and emailing me and contacting. We really do appreciate each and every one of you, and thank you so much for listening to us. And we really are trying to bring who we think are at the top of their respective industries to give you the information that we think is important, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. And according to the stats that I've been kind of looking at, people are listening, man. So yeah.
It's so much fun though. There's nothing more fun than, like, it hits me sometimes during some of these interviews. Like, I was just watching, we're going to have Tom Campbell on. I was just watching My Big Toe. I'm like, I don't even know I can't even know what to begin to ask this guy, Like,
yeah.
This guy's explaining the universe as a hologram, and he has supposedly proof of it. I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah, I'm excited for that interview as well. But yeah, man, this is Xavier and Dr. G, my co-host. Guys, thank you so much for listening to our show. We really are passionate about